and probably any minute now.
Mind Size webinar is now streaming live on Facebook.
Perfect. We're live. Welcome. Welcome. Hi, everybody. Hi, Jake. Hi, Jessica.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
We made it to the afternoon. How's everybody doing today?
Hey, no complaints so far. Like you said, made it to 12 o'clock. That's a good start.
Yes. Yes. Well, hey, thanks so much for hopping on here on this Zoom call with us, Jake. Everybody, welcome to our North County Association of Realtors, NSDCAR Young Professionals Network. I'm Melody Stoneburner. I am the current chair for 2020. And we also have Jessica Cruz, our vice chair, upcoming chair for 2021. Whoop, whoop. And one of our awesome platinum sponsors, Jake with State Farm Insurance. Hi, Jake.
Hello, hello. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks so much for coming on. We are excited to be kind of doing this series and getting to know our sponsors a little bit more. And we have some questions for you today and just wanted to get to know you a little bit so that our audience can get to know you a little bit and hear about your product and also, you know, what you're seeing in the market right now. So we're excited that you all are sponsoring YPN and just kind of wanted to, I'll get it started with just give us a little background on you. Are you from San Diego originally? And how'd you get into insurance? And give us a little bit of the backstory.
Yeah, of course. So I actually am born and raised in Encinitas. My parents' house is actually less than a mile away from my office right now. So
awesome.
Get my mom stopping in for some coffee every now and then. But no, it's great. So I was born and raised here, went to school here. And I mean, Encinitas is a pretty cool place. So it was a pretty easy decision to move back here after college. But yeah, I was born and raised, played a lot of sports. I have 4 older sisters. So
wow.
My dad hung out a lot growing up. And
are you the only boy?
I'm the only boy, youngest. So
wow.
Okay, we made it. So it's all right. No, it was great. Like I said, it was an easy decision to move back to Encinitas. And then as far as insurance, I always joke around, you know, I had some buddies that wanted to be firefighters and police officers and spacemen. I always just wanted to be in insurance growing up. That was always my thing from age 5. No, just kidding. Honestly, I had graduated college. I had a business degree. Didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. Had a few different opportunities. And actually one of my dad's good friends was a State Farm agent at the time. And so I graduated and moved back down to Encinitas and went and spoke with him. And he kind of just gave me the idea of what having an agency, what being in insurance was about. And just had a really good conversation with him. He happened to be hiring at that point. And so he kind of took me under his wing to learn under him, learn the business, learn the insurance aspect, learn how to run a business, which I had no idea how to do. So ended up working for him for about 4.5, 5 years. And he was, you know, a great mentor. He was one of the better agents in the industry, and especially with State Farm in this area. He had been around for 32 years by the time I joined him. So he had a load of experience. It was really cool. I had known him prior, so being able to work under him and just learn everything and try to be a sponge and just digest as much as I could over the years was pretty exciting. And then after 4.5 years, I felt like I was ready to kind of jump ship off on my own. So opened up my doors for my office in October of 2017 and have had my office since then. And it's been a whirlwind. There's been ups and downs and everything in between, but it's been fun. We try to have fun with it and make it as fun as possible, because I have a colleague that always says, if you don't make it fun, it's probably not going to be, especially talking with insurance. So so that's kind of a low level overview of where I am and how I got here. But it's been fun. I love the Encinitas area. I grew up in it. It defines a lot of who I am. So it's really neat and rewarding to be able to have my office in the community, try to give back in different ways and just be a part of the community is pretty fun. So
that's awesome. What a great start to have had such a great mentor to learn from and that's definitely the best way to do it. Getting in the business as a young professional is teaming up with somebody who knows what they're doing that you can learn from and gain that experience from. So that's awesome. And great to know that you're in your local here in North County. So we'll be sure to post your information, contact information, and office location. So if anybody is needing a great insurance company to team up with, Jake, thanks so much for sponsoring us this year. And we're excited to get to know you more and build our community all together. So I'm going to hand things off to Jessica because we've got some great questions that came from our committee members, from agents and industry professionals, just their questions about insurance right now. So we're going to dive into some of those.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks again, Jake, for being a sponsor. We all appreciate it. And I'm actually really excited to learn a little bit more about insurance because, you know, you always have the question as an agent about insurance, like the day before you're closing or the day you're closing, because like we need flood insurance. Why can't we get it? So this is going to be enjoyable for me to just learn a little bit more instead of, you know, having to figure it out at the last minute. So I will just get started. One of the first questions I have is, what is the best habit to have in regards to making sure that you have ample insurance year over year? And are there any steps that you can make to make sure that you're covered if something changes, if your life changes? What can you tell us about?
Yeah, I think really the only thing that I generally recommend for that, and it's something that I implement with my clients, is just having regular reviews with a licensed professional insurance agent. There's really no other way that I can think of to where all the parties involved that need to, you know, be advising on those decisions and those making the decisions can really have all the information. And so a general rule of thumb that I do with my clients is every 12 to 18 months, you know, we'll schedule, whether it's a call, it might be going towards Zoom calls for the future or in office appointments, whatever that looks like, is just to have conversations with your licensed professionals. Because without having those conversations of where you are in life and what's new and what's happened and have you bought a home, have you started a family, those are all, you know, life impacts that can have impacts on your insurance going forward. So my general rule of thumb, like I said, is every 12 months to 18 months, just have some type of regular process where you're having conversations with your licensed professional. And anytime you do have a life event, whether you are buying a home, whether you're starting a family, whether, any number of different life events that can kind of trigger that. A lot of those will have impacts on your insurance coverage, what's necessary, increases, decreases, anything along those lines. So I think it's really important to have a constant communication stream with your insurance agent, which I know is foreign for a lot of people. And so that kind of brings me to the next thing, is just to have someone on the insurance side that you trust, that you know, that you can pick up the phone and call them with questions, because that's not available in a lot of networks or a lot of different companies. So yeah, I think it's really important just to have someone that you can trust, that you can pick up a phone or shoot a text or shoot an email over and get your questions answered. But yeah, it's the constant communication. It's regular check-ins on your insurance account. It doesn't have to be your every single Monday at 2:30 you're calling your insurance agent. It doesn't have to be like that. I don't think anyone wants that. But just to know to be checking in with your insurance agent or your company regularly, just to review any changes that have been had over the last year or so and see if that affects the insurance in any way.
Awesome. That kind of makes me think, when I think of insurance, I just think of like homeowners insurance, but there's lots of other types of insurance. So do you sell all different types? Maybe you can name them for us.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, there's a gamut of different insurance policies, right? So, I mean, the auto insurance, home insurance, that's kind of the crux of most insurance agencies. We have the ability to do commercial insurance, which I really enjoy, working with other business owners. But then there's also, health insurance and life insurance and all these different types that fall into those categories as well. So what I kind of pride myself on is we do have the ability to write a lot of different types of insurance, but to at least be knowledgeable about those different lines, whether it's something that I can help out with, or if I have some colleagues in the industry that are better equipped to help in certain situations. And so that kind of goes back to having just those conversations with a professional, licensed insurance agent, just to bring up the different types of policies that are out there that might fit into certain families' plans. But yeah, we do a little bit of everything around here. So.
Well, that might answer my next question, but next question, what is the most important things consumers have to remember when shopping for insurance? What are the pitfalls that they may need to avoid?
Yeah, I think, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, and more towards like new purchases or those kind of new policies, is waiting to the last minute, especially in Southern California. And I know you're laughing because I know you've seen it probably 100 times. But waiting to the last minute can be dangerous, especially, with the current climate of insurance. There are some setbacks and some difficulties in getting some, especially property insurance in certain areas. And so I think that's one thing, is maybe not planning ahead. I think the biggest pitfall that I see, though, is a lot of consumers assume that all insurance, whether it's with company A, B, or C, is going to be the exact same. And so I always hear, the apples for apples quotes, and, people shopping around just wanting this type of coverage. In California, with property insurance specifically, a homeowner's policy can mean something different to a lot of different companies. There's different homeowners forms that policies are written on. Some forms that have more coverage, less coverage, more exclusions, less exclusions. So I think that's one thing that's pretty common in the industry, is people kind of think of insurance as a one size fit all, and that, this policy with company A is going to match what this company B is providing, when in a lot of cases that isn't the case. And so again, that kind of goes back to having someone in the industry that you trust that can walk you through what those differences are, and what some pitfalls with this policy versus that policy could be. Because insurance is a whole nother language, and I always say that to my clients. We're not expecting you to know that language. That's why we're here, so we can help kind of decipher and let you know what that looks like. So but yeah, I think waiting to the last minute for those kind of new purchases, that's something that we see a lot. And then just assuming that everything's the same can get you in some trouble down the line. And so just having someone to be able to explain those differences, I found to be helpful.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't, insurance is not something you always think about the first thing when you're buying a house.
Yep.
But it really is important, and to get that policy together before closing date.
Yep.
Okay, next question. Servicing the North County area, we have difficulty sometimes finding adequate fire insurance. Certain parts of North County, especially east of the 78, are designated as severe fire areas, and they do not even issue policies in this area. Can you explain why this comes up, and also if there are any ways to avoid this becoming an issue when you are purchasing a property?
Yeah, that's one of the tough things that we've seen in the industry lately, especially
especially during a fire.
Exactly. And it's always, we had our most recent firestorms a few years ago, and there's always some changes that happen with whether it's zip codes or zones that insurance companies want to stay away from. And so that's a tough one, because each individual company is going to have its guidelines and its underwriting requirements. And there's going to be areas in some companies that just don't want to write in this area because there's been a history of losses or fire zones or whatever the case may be. And so that kind of goes back to some of the stuff that we've been talking about, is to be proactive. If you are looking for a home, it's actually really something that I recommend doing, is just reaching out to your agent saying, hey, we're thinking about putting an offer on this home. Are there any restrictions? Are there any issues? What does that kind of look like? Because I've had clients that are already in the escrow process, and they're saying, hey, we need quotes on this, this, or that. And it can be difficult. I would say the one thing that I am grateful for is with State Farm, we don't have nearly as many restrictions as a lot of companies do right now. East of the 78 or in Rancho Santa Fe, we see a ton of restrictions with some other companies. We are equipped to write business in more zip codes, I think, than most other companies, which is great. But also, being born and raised in Encinitas, I also have, colleagues that work outside of State Farm, whether it's for brokerages or other companies, that I'm comfortable referring off to if it is in an area that I'm unable to help with. And so I think there's a few aspects to that. The planning ahead can be very helpful if you know ahead of time that this area is a fire zone, or it's really close to the ocean, or it's close to this lake, whatever it looks like, you can at least, go into the process with that in mind and know that there could be some difficulties, or, premiums might be higher in this area or that area because of some different factors. And so it's something that we've seen, and we always see it after the fires. We see certain areas that get tougher to write insurance in, but luckily with where we are as a company, we're a little better equipped, I think, than most to be able to help out in those areas.
So is that statement of like, you can't get fire insurance on this area, so you're just saying that that's not completely true? You may just have to research it and find the company that will issue a fire policy, or are there areas where you just can't find it?
Yeah, and there are some. And so usually the last case scenario, if there are zip codes that pretty much all insurance carriers can't write in, you can go to the California Fair Plan. So there's almost always a last resort. Those policies can be pretty exclusive and pretty expensive. But and part of the Fair Plan is you have to try to exhaust all your different options of getting insurance through kind of the normal means, first of all. So that's also the tough thing, is with every company, they're going to have their own restrictions, and they're going to be different from company to company. And so that's why, like I said, I really enjoy the relationships that I have with some colleagues and some brokers, where if I do come across a property that I'm not equipped to write business on, I'm comfortable knowing that they're going to do a good job for, this client or whoever it is, to be able to help them out. But doing the research, ahead of time, if you're a normal company, or if the insurance company that you're talking to can't help you out, usually there are some other avenues that you can try to look for before going to kind of the last case scenario, which is usually the California Fair Plan. So.
Awesome. I think that kind of answers the next question. It's kind of a similar question, but to coastal properties. Yep. And I've had it happen before where, the day before closing, I have a coastal condo, and they, the lender's requiring flood insurance, and the quote from my client was really high. And I was like, let me see what I can do, make a couple calls. And then she was able to get a plan, flood insurance for a reasonable cost, because it almost blew the deal with how expensive she was quoted for the flood insurance policy. So is that the same answer, kind of?
It is similar. Most flood insurance will go through the National Flood Insurance Program and FEMA. And so most companies that are admitted to write the insurance through FEMA, and State Farm is one of them, we do a little bit of flood insurance. Most carriers will go through FEMA, and those rates are all the same. Whether your agency is with State Farm or Farmers or Allstate, if they're admitted to write and they're licensed with FEMA, those quotes are pretty much all going to be the same. But there are a few companies out there that I think still provide their own flood insurance, and usually that's where you start seeing the big premiums, because it's kind of very similar with earthquake in California. Is FEMA is a national program that's funded to specifically help with flood insurance, and so they have the money in the bank, essentially, where if something crazy does happen, they have the money to pay out. Where some of these smaller companies that offer it themselves, they might have the money to pay out, but they have to charge a little bit more maybe to do that. And so I would say most carriers are admitted and licensed to sell through FEMA, through the NFIP, which is normally what happens. But yeah, it gets tough, especially if you're by the ocean or by a large body of water. If you're in a flood zone, we're kind of up to the powers that be to determine what those premiums are, and it can be tough. And I've seen it, hang up deals or ruin deals before, and it's unfortunate. But that's I think we keep hitting on some of the other stuff. It's just doing the prep work and making sure that everything's kind of in place where it's not the day before, escrow closes or the day before closing. So it kind of all goes back to, trying to get all your ducks in a row and trying to make sure that everything's in line beforehand.
Speaking of getting your ducks in a row, so for homeowners insurance, I feel like a lot of consumers, when they're purchasing a home, they think, oh, I just need homeowners insurance. And they don't realize that there are these other policies that we're talking about, like additional policies. We just talked about fire and flood. Is there anything else like additional that, they should be aware of? Or I'm sure that's something you talk to them about when they call you and tell
Yeah.
their personal situation. But what other policies are there, if there are any?
Usually, I mean, buying a home, whether it's your first home or a second home or whatever it is, that's always kind of one of those life triggers where I always recommend reaching out to your insurance professional just to talk through those options. But generally speaking, flood insurance is, a flood loss from outside rainwater or storm is almost always going to be not covered through normal homeowners policies. Same with earthquake insurance and earthquake coverage. And so those two are probably the most common kind of supplemental homeowners policy coverages that we see. But I mean, buying a home can also trigger the need for other types of insurance as well, whether, it's a liability policy to help protect, your assets or your equity in the home. Or life insurance family plans if you want to make sure to cover a mortgage, or disability insurance so you can pay your mortgage if something happens. And so you can kind of get down the rabbit hole, but that is usually one of the biggest triggers of, hey, let's sit down, talk, see where you are financially and where your family's at and what's a concern. Because I talked to some clients where earthquake, they won't buy any properties without looking into earthquake insurance. But I have other clients that say, hey, I'm not worried about it. If an earthquake comes, it is what it is, we'll figure it out. And so that's just kind of the conversation that you have is, hey, what's important to you and your family? What's concerning to you and your family? And what can we put in place or put in front of you to help quell some of those concerns? And so it's kind of just that common theme of the communication with your insurance agent and your insurance professional, because you're exactly right. A lot of people, when they buy a home, it's just, hey, we need homeowners insurance, and that's it. While it's very important to have the homeowners insurance, that triggers at least a conversation to see what else is out there that might be of some concern to the client.
Awesome. So call Jake from State Farm when you have
Farm.
any insurance questions.
We'll be happy to talk to you.
Final question. What effects have COVID-19 had on the industry, the insurance industry, if any, and in the short term and long term?
Yeah, I think it's been crazy, and I think everyone can agree with that. And there's been, luckily, I think on the consumer side, there really haven't been as many changes as I think a lot of people might have thought. A lot of companies are still available, even if they are working from home, to answer questions or to put policies in place, or doing the day-to-day stuff. That is still a reality for most companies, which is great. I think any of the changes are really going to be on the insurance side and how agencies run their businesses, whether I think I mentioned a little earlier, I love having the face-to-face interactions and having my clients or prospective clients come into the office. They get to meet me, my team, see the office, and just have those conversations. That might not be possible going forward for some clients or many clients, or maybe some people still aren't comfortable coming in, which, it's hard to argue with. So I think as far as like the day-to-day stuff on a consumer base, I don't think that there's going to be too many changes, but from an agency perspective. And I know a lot of companies are kind of the online, 800 number, and they have that model already. So there really aren't any changes with that. But State Farm has always been kind of a brick and mortar, have your physical office location, have, real people on the phones that you can talk to. And so that there could be some changes when it comes to that. But the good thing is, in our industry, we do have the ability to pack up, and we just worked from home for almost 3 months. We just got back into our office last week. So luckily, we do have the flexibility to be able to kind of adapt and change and go on the run if we need to. But luckily, I think from the consumer standpoint, there really haven't been any drastic changes that I think some people feared initially going into this. So.
Wonderful. Anything else you want to add in closing, or?
No, just, I'll keep going back to it. I really do think it's important just to have someone in your corner, and it's not just insurance. It's a bunch of different things. To have a good attorney, to have, good insurance person, just to have good people that you trust in your corner. There's the stigma with insurance and insurance agents that you never want to talk to them, right? If you talk to them, they're going to find something out, they're going to raise your rates, or they're going to start asking questions. But it's a stigma that we try to get past here, just because it can be so helpful having someone that and having someone that you trust, that you can walk into their office or call them or text them or email them and know that you're going to get answer, and you're going to get correct information, and it's going to be timely, and it goes a long way. And there's a lot of things that good insurance agents can help prevent being issues in the future if you're having those conversations, and if things are kind of moving along and progressing as they should. So I think it's really important. I know some people just like the online or do it themselves stuff, which is fine for some people, but we really think that there's a value to having someone that knows what they're doing, that's licensed, and like I said, that you can contact anytime. I know that the commercial, the 3 a.m. with Jake from State Farm. I personally won't be up at 3 a.m., but we have someone that will be. But no, it's nice. It can save a hassle moving forward. So yeah, that's pretty much what I got. I really appreciate it.
And comments on our Facebook Live. So I want to open it up for any other questions. If anybody's watching and you have an insurance question, now's your time. But we did get one question from Giovanni Ruiz. Thanks, Giovanni, for watching and throwing in a question. He says, question, how do you know if a community has a master policy? How does a master policy affect the premium for the individual townhome unit?
That is such a good question, and something that we work a lot on, because when you're buying a condo, your policy, your homeowner's unit owner's policy has to piggyback off of that association policy. And so finding out where this association policy is, if there is one, it can be tricky. But if you're buying a condo, most of the time that'll come out, in disclosures, or at some point throughout the process, there will be the contact with, whether it's the management group or someone on the board of the HOA. That's something that I actually,
the HOA package that they order.
What's that?
It would probably be in like the HOA package,
Yep.
the doc package.
HOA docs.
Yep. And so that's step one, is seeing if there isn't a master policy in place already. And then the next part is, and this is where it helps to have someone that knows the insurance language and knows what to look for, is having someone review what that master policy is and what it covers and what it doesn't cover. Because like I said, the unit owner's responsibility for condos is totally dependent on what that master policy covers. And it can be as plain as, hey, the master policy is going to cover the structure of this building, and it's the unit owner's responsibility to cover everything else inside, walls, floors, cabinets, permanent fixtures, everything. But then there's some associations, yeah, like everything. And then there are some associations and some insurance companies that will cover a lot more on the interior. They'll cover the countertops or the cabinets or the upgrades if you make them to the unit, which means you might not have to cover as much through your unit owner's policy. And so each one, like I said, is going to be unique to that association, depending on how the CC&Rs are written and how the insurance policy is written. But that's where it's extremely important to have someone at least do that research for you or get that information, because if someone's just quoting you for a condo policy just out of the blue, and I think this is right, you kind of leave it up to chance on, if they haven't done the research and figured out what exactly the unit owner's policy is supposed to cover, you don't really know if it's the right insurance or not. So that's a really, really good question, one that we get very often, and one that we try to take on the majority of the phone calls and the kind of, getting that information. We try to do that ahead of time, just because, like I said, we speak the language. We kind of know what to ask in that aspect.
Awesome. Well, I guess the bottom line is, with the North County real estate that we're all working on, there's a lot of high fire areas. There's a lot of flood areas potentially. So always feel free to reach out to Jake with State Farm. And we'll make sure that his information is posted below. It's the best way for people to reach you: phone call, email.
Yeah, all the above. I prefer phone calls or in person. We're perfectly good with emails or text messages. It's really kind of up to the client. We're adaptable. We can do it a bunch of different ways.
Great. Well, thanks for making yourself available to us to ask these questions and to give us some information. And anybody who's watching or live right now or watching the recording, check the comments. We'll post Jake's information. Feel free to reach out to him anytime for your insurance questions, and support our young professionals community. Thanks so much for supporting us, Jake, and sponsoring NSD CIR YPN. And thank you, Jessica, for kind of hosting us today and asking these questions. And if you have any other questions that pop up, stick them in the comments and we'll make sure that Jake answers them. And
I feel like I just want to know if he's wearing khakis.
I tried to plan it out. I didn't do it. I don't have the khakis. I don't have the red shirt on today. It's a big fail. Big fail.
We'll just have to do it again. We'll let you off the hook this time, but next time you better be wearing khaki pants.
I'll have everything up to the name tag as well. Don't worry.
That is awesome. Thanks so much, Jake. Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you, Melody. Thank you, Jessica. You guys have a good one.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye, guys.